We've got a box down here of random old mics.
Wow.
That's late 40s Lustraphone. Sounds like crap, but sometimes as like a dirty drum mic or something, it's great. These are brilliant, these MD21 from the early 60s.
Oh, wow.
The only thing is it's a pain trying to position it because you can't angle it or anything because it just screws straight onto the stand. It's kind of difficult to get the angle right, but they sound amazing on a saxophone or any brass. Amazing on a guitar cab. There's all sorts of stuff. Old 50s harmonica mics.
Wow.
But again, you never know when this is going to come in handy.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes someone will want to cup that and do a distorted spoken word thing. I'd rather record it into that and commit to it than try and recreate it with plugins later. And again, it just kind of makes the whole experience more fun.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you just need something to break up the flow. I say the flow when you're going down that nobody's got any ideas. It's all going a bit stale. Something's got to just change. You just need that moment to take everybody out of that same thing that they're doing. So yeah, those kinds of things, brilliant.
People have read these rock and roll stories before, or they've read these stories of how their favourite records were made, and they want a bit of a taste of that as well. We experimented with this old mic from the 50s that smelled of cigarette smoke, and it's like it kind of romanticizes it a bit for them. And like you say, it's far more exciting for them to do that than just stand in front of a U87 and then me go, I'll do it with plugins later.
Absolutely.
They're going to be far more excited when they play that mix to people, and they're going to go, oh, here, we use this old 1940s microphone, rather than just like, oh, he's processed that and it sounds really authentic. They're not going to tell anyone about that, but they are going to talk about those weird mics that are in that box. But yeah.
Brilliant.
That's my approach anyway. That's what I wanted to do when I was a musician, like recording. I wanted to do the stuff that I had read about and watched on, you know, like one of my favourite documentaries was A Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica. And I think even now, like, that's such a great thing to watch, to see what a producer actually does. Because, you know, like Bob Rock really gets stuck into those tracks, and I know some people are a bit kind of feel that he ruined the band, but I think fair play to him. He did what they wanted to do.
He brought them to the attention of the world. They needed a change, and although, you know, a lot of the fans didn't like it, he did give them that stepping off point to have a career that they're still there today. When I was at school doing this back in 91, that was the year that came out, the Black Album, but we got, one of our lecturers was being shown the making of Pump, and it was just brilliant because it was like,
was Bob Rock, he worked?
No, it was Mike Fraser.
Oh, right.
At the time, Bob Rock was the other guy that came out of Little Mountain. But that was another one. It was like, this is what a producer does. Wow. And this is how an album gets made. And
that, and Get a Grip. Like the drum sound on that record like blows my mind, like, still. But I think he's died now, isn't he, Bruce Fair?
Bruce Fairbairn, he died in the early 2000s, I think,
Oh, right.
But
I know
but
Bob
a bit of a
Rock
legacy
was something
there
to do with him, wasn't he? But again, you know, that I used to watch that kind of stuff, and then so when I went into a studio, I'd want to get to do all of those things, and it just makes the whole thing, you know, a bit more magical.
You're going to talk us through a fairly standard for you, I guess, drum setup?
Yeah, I mean, this is, if I'm recording rock or indie or something like that, this is 9 times out of 10 pretty much how I would mic the kit.
Okay.
Room mics may vary a bit, and sometimes I'll mic the hat. I often find out whenever I mic the hi-hat, I end up, when I come to mixing it, it very rarely makes it into the mix.
Right.
Like usually on toms, I would use these Electro Voice 468s. Like, I really like the sound. I used to use 57s, and then I went through a stage of using 421s.
Right.
But these just sound a little bit fatter.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to use a dynamic mic, it would usually be these ones.
Those are the old N-Dime, aren't they?
That's right, yeah.
They're great.
But recently, I'm using these Octava
MK012.
That's right.
They're
I know,
lovely mics.
Yeah, and I know Steve Albini uses one on his snares.
Right.
and they can sound great on the snare. But a friend of mine, it's like, oh, have you ever tried them on toms? And then you just get this beautiful glossy sort of sheen. I use them on toms where I can, but it depends on the drummer. If you've got a drummer that has got really bad cymbal technique or trashy sounding cymbals, they can be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, small diaphragm condensers on toms are really good. I mean, I always use one IKM84 alongside the snare.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I used to use 451s when we had a load of them at studios. I'd use 451s on toms because they're brilliant.
Yeah.
People just assume they're going to sound small, but they don't.
No, they don't at all.
And I've often looked for MKO12s as a replacement for KM84s because they're really good mics.
Yeah, they're great sounding mics. But yeah, I use them on all sorts, like acoustic guitar. They come out a lot. But yeah, definitely toms and snare. I'll usually have one of those, usually with a 57 next to it. The i5's a bit brighter, so I don't tend to get those out when I'm using that. But yeah, they're certainly doing the job in this instance.
Overheads looking like you're equidistant from the snare. Looking at it from here,
I mean, I've always, I've tried all sorts of different arrangements with the overheads, but this is just what I get on with best. And I'll usually measure it with like an XLR cable or something. But yeah, usually make sure the snare's in the centre. I don't want to be trying to fix things later
you just
on.
played us a little bit of the drums in here and it sounded lively, and it's just a really good starting point. Everything sounded like it was punching out. So yeah, moving mics around, getting the phase right at source is super important. And you got a couple of what are these?
These are SE Titans, but I find in this room, because it's not the world's biggest room, I have them on a cardioid and they're facing away from the kit, and that just over the years I've experimented with literally every room mic position I can in here. And that seems to work best.
It works really well, doesn't it? That's miking the back wall kind of thing. Yeah, I've done that a few times. I actually saw Warren Hewitt. He was at Sunset Sound, and he always mics the back wall in this particular room, and it just does something just different. It's like sometimes you're just trying to pick up the room rather than kit in the room.
In here, because this has got the Artex and then that hasn't, I've put these screens here just so that they've got the same surface in front of them. I mean, ideally that wall would be the same as this one, and then it would be even more lively, but I've tried to sort of create the same environment around both the mics just so that they match up. But yeah, that, you know, once you slam them with compression, and I've usually got a decapitator on them as well, it actually sounds like a much bigger room than it is.
It sounded great.
But yeah, again, that's generally how I have the room mic. Sometimes I might have one in there if there's not guitars being tracked in there.
And I think the other thing as well I noticed is you're getting some distance with all your close mics. You're getting distance because presumably the room's not leaking back badly into the close mics because it's quite under control even though it's live. I mean, you're under snare, your ride, they're all a distance away. It's allowing that sound to develop a bit.
Yeah, it's nice. I like to get some air in there.
Absolutely.
I've never really been a fan of drum recordings where you can hear a tom here, a tom here, a kick, and it's all too isolate. Like, I like things to blend together a little bit. And again, like you say, it's not really a problematic room in terms of reflections and stuff, so I can get a bit of air in there. The reason the under snare is down there though is just because, like, I always used to use a 57 underneath, and I always hated the sound of it.
Yeah.
And I know plenty of engineers that get a great sound with that underneath, but I could never get it to work. And then I would find when I was mixing, it would never make it into the mix. And then I started using a 414 on a figure of 8 and positioning it much further away from the snare.
Yeah.
And now I can't live without it. Like,
well, the amount of bottom end you get from that on the snare mic is amazing, isn't it? Because you sort of put it in the mid, just solo it up, and it's like, well, yeah, it's mostly rattle, but when you take it away from the top snare, there's enough low end that combines with the top that suddenly it's like it's a massive part of the sound. I used to poo-poo the bottom snare mic. I'm famous for commenting that it's a load of old shit, like hi-hat mic, but you know, I live and learn.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be without it. I've normally got 3 mics on the snare, like 57 KM84 and a bottom mic.
What do you use on the bottom usually?
Whatever's left. I mean, generally a small diaphragm condenser.
Right.
It'll be like a 451 or an 84 or I've even got a free Joe Meek mic that came with a channel strip, and it works because that's a condenser.
Well, yeah, I'm a big fan of the condenser underneath now. Like, I probably wouldn't go back to using a dynamic under there just because I can't get it. I can't get it to work. But also, I really like the bleed from the kick into it. You get this really nice glossy top end coming in from the kick. So I don't always gate it, that bottom snare mic. But yeah, that's I've done that for years now, and no reason to change.
No, and I suppose we shouldn't leave the kick out as we're talking about drums. Looks like a Sennheiser.
That's an E602. I've got several kick mics I use. I've got a Heil PR48 over there, which I really like, and also a D6. But I find the E602, it's a similar sort of ballpark to the D6, but it's just a bit, bit punchier. D6 is a lot more scooped.
It is, yeah.
But I mean, obviously, there's no sort of one mic that does everything. But for rock stuff, that's the close. I was looking at the other one. I think the E902 is it? Very similar. But I listened to the demos online. And that, I just thought, if there's going to be one mic that pretty much does everything, it's that one.
Brilliant.
And they had a special offer on last Christmas. They were like 75 quid.
Wow.
So it was a no-brainer. Oz got one as well.
I use those 604s for clip-ons for toms. I've used those for years, and it's like they're so reasonable, and you can get them in where you need to.
Yeah.
And let's face it, we've got EQ.
Yeah, I've got some of those which I'll use as well if I'm using those on something else. Then, but yeah, they sound great, the 604s. And I'm really liking the Astons at the moment for overheads. So yeah, that's thing is I've just got sort of go-to. I know for rock stuff, I'm going to get the sound I want out of those mics. I tend to. It's rare that I'll vary it. If a band's using that kit, that's just the in-house kit. It might change depending on what they bring in with them.
I guess mainly it's more about the placement, making sure the kit's tuned well, the skins aren't horrible, and getting a balance on the cymbals that never being frightened of saying to the drummer, can we try some different cymbals, because that's not quite working. What you do live is great, but they're a bit too trashy. You can't balance the ride against the crash and stuff like that. So it's all the. I mean, it's a really simple setup, but it's like kind of what we all do, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I know I'm going to get the sound I want there. Again, with the cymbals, where I can, obviously this varies depending on how drummers have them set up. I tend to try and mic over the bell of the cymbal, just because there's not as much movement there as there is around the edge. So you tend to get a much more even cymbal sound. This has worked out all right because that's a really loud crash. But I've just chucked that under there if I need a bit more detail. But it's not always possible to do that because some drummers have them everywhere. But yeah, again, it's getting the balance right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like cymbals too loud and trashy.
No.
And I just find the drum sound, it feels heavier and fatter when the cymbals are quiet and they kind of wash nicely over everything.
Yeah,
and then homemade sub kick as well for a bit of extra low.
Cool.
But yeah, that's pretty much the go-to.
That's brilliant.
Setup.
Nice. Very cool.